All right, welcome everybody to tonight's City Council meeting. We are called to order. Let's start with roll call, please.
Mayor Bagley.
Here.
Council members Christensen. Here. Finley. Here. Martin. Peck. Rodriguez. Here. Waters. Here. Mayor, you have a quorum.
All right, let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, just a quick reminder that this meeting can be viewed on the live stream at www.longmontcolorado.gov. Also, the April Coffee with Council has been canceled. The City Council is focusing on the Mayor's Early Education Summit to help shape the future of early childhood education in Longmont, and we encourage everybody in the community to show up and watch, but not necessarily participate, because there's only so many people that can sit at the table. All right, as a brief reminder to the public, the chair would remind everyone that anyone wishing to speak at first call public invited to be heard, to add his or her name to this list. So anyone else here want to put it on? If not, and you change your mind, you won't be able to speak at first call public invited to be heard, but tonight is a regular session meeting, so you can wait till the end of the meeting, and a bunch of stuff was canceled tonight, so maybe it won't be that long tonight. We'll just have to see. So, also, actually, can I have an approval for April 9th's regular session minutes, please? All right, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously with Councilmember Marsha Martin out of the country. Revisions to the agenda. Staff is pulling items 11A, which was the P&Z appeal. The applicant is not appealing the decision. And item 11B is being pulled due to, unfortunately, a death in the family, and our thoughts are with David Slater as he deals with that. All right, City Manager, do you have a report? Okay.
No report, Mayor, Council.
Great. All right, let's move on to a couple of proclamations. If we could, Michelle Org, is it Org or Orge? Orge. Michelle Orge, Ms. Orge, Executive Director of Community Food Share. If you could come down to accept the proclamation. It states, a proclamation designated April 26, 2018, April 26 through 28, 2019 as Community Food Share Fund and Food Drive Weekend in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas the food bank's Hunger Hurts the Whole Community Fund and Food Drive will stock the shelves of more than 40 nonprofits in Boulder and Broomfield counties as we gear up to fight summer hunger. And whereas 25% of children in our community depend on the free and reduced breakfast and lunch they receive in school, 2 daily meals that may disappear when the school year ends. And whereas Community Food Share's mission is to eliminate hunger in Boulder and Broomfield counties throughout engagement, collaboration, and leadership. And whereas Community Food Share distributed 10.4 million pounds of nutritious food last year, including 3.6 million pounds to the Longmont area in partnership with 13 Longmont nonprofit organizations. And whereas the generosity of Longmont's residents enables Community Food Share to discover new and different ways to source and deliver the best, most nutritious food to more people so we can end hunger in our neighborhood for good. Now, therefore, I, Brian Bagley, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me in the City Council of Longmont, do hereby proclaim the weekend of April 26th through 28th, 2019 as Community Food Share Fund and Food Drive Weekend in Longmont, and I invite all citizens in the community to recognize the vital services that Community Food Share provides to Longmont residents in need, and to donate, this is the important part, and to donate funds and food with a generous spirit. So the fancy way here is, the fancy way of saying this is, donate your money and food to the Community Food Share Fund because they need it, right?
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, why don't you say a few words, and then we'd ask you to take a picture with us.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, so much for your support and for this proclamation. So much of what I could say is already in the proclamation that you've already shared, so I won't add too much other than we really appreciate the support of the Longmont community. I am a Longmont resident and appreciate so much everything that you all do, and thanks for the proclamation.
Well, thank you. Can we take your picture, please?
Yes.
Great, thanks.
and gather around her. No, just back up to the line with them. That'll be fine. All right. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, did she walk? Did she leave? Okay, good. I'm sorry. Can you look at which proclamation you have? I'll trade you. Don't zoom in on that picture. We'll Photoshop it. All right. Thank you, Ms. Orge. I was like, oh no, we don't have one for the Public Service Recognition Week. So this time, city staff, if you're present, can you come down to the podium so I can scream a proclamation at you? Sean, could you please approach the podium on behalf of staff and accept this? Thank you. All right. Thank you, Sean. This is a proclamation designating May 5th through the 11th, 2019 as Public Service Recognition Week in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas Americans are served every single day by public servants like you, Sean, at the federal, state, county, and civil levels, these unsung heroes do the work that keeps our nation working. And whereas the city of Longmont has a long and proud tradition of providing a wide variety of services to its citizens, including police and fire protection, public works and natural resources, municipal airport operations, parks and open space services, planning and development services, golf and recreation services, municipal courts and probation, and electric and broadband utilities, etc. Whereas public servants include administrative and internal support personnel, custodians, clerks, fleet and facilities maintenance workers, accountants, cashiers, and human resources personnel, and they work day in and day out to provide diverse services to residents and to improve and sustain the quality of life for those who live in, work in, and visit our wonderful city of Longmont. And whereas the tradition of outstanding public service is advanced every day in Longmont by more than 900 full-time and part-time municipal employees and more than 600 temporary employees, and whereas it is important to recognize and salute the outstanding efforts Longmont's public service employees make by dedicating their time, talent, and energy to serving our citizens, and by spending much of their free time participating in volunteer work and civic service projects. Now, therefore, I, Brian Bagley, Mayor, and the City Council of the City of Longmont do hereby designate the week of May 5th through 11th, 2019 as Public Service Recognition Week in Longmont and urge all citizens to take a moment to recognize a public servant for their hard work, dedication, and service to their community. Sean, what do you have to say about that?
Mayor Bagley, members of council, Sean Lewis, Assistant City Manager. Just want to say that I think I can speak for all employees to say that it's an honor to serve the city of Longmont and a privilege, and this community is very good to us and we appreciate that. And it's rare that I go out into the community without hearing somebody say something wonderful that a city employee has done. I say this often, but of all the cities I've worked for, which was before other ones, this is by far the most professional, the most well-trained, most well-educated group of staff that I've ever worked with, and it's a real privilege. And I think I can say on behalf of the city manager's office, we appreciate the work of every employee. Thank you. And our partnership with city council.
So, Mayor, what I wanted to say is we have
Thank you, Sean.
echo everything that Sean said. That was fun to watch. Thank you. One of the things I did want to say is that we have some amazing folks that work in our organization, and every day I'm amazed by a story that I hear. But it's not only what they do when they're on the job. I think when you really look and you see the contributions that those individuals make to our community when they're not in their formal capacity and how they're volunteering in various ways, I think you really see the commitment that they have to our organization. And so one of the things that we're going to do as part of this, and I wanted to remind you all, is that on May 9th at 6:45 in the morning, we're going to be making our burritos and serving all of those amazing folks, because one of the things I say to them is that on any given day, any one of the total 1,500-ish can be the most important person in the organization. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen that occur.
And just one, I just read a proclamation, I know, but sometimes we on council can get tired and cranky, and we don't understand. And I know that we have different opinions, and we can be somewhat difficult, all of us, to work with on occasion. But the one thing that I want to express on behalf of all the council is that how much we appreciate the city attorney's office and Harold, your staff, and all they do. I mean, I've been doing this now for 7 years, almost 8, and I have no idea still how this city gets half the things done that it gets done. It's an organizational miracle. So it's just yeah, I'm not thanking you, Harold. I said your staff. I know the truth. Same to you, Mr. May. All right, if we could get all staff members present, except for, actually, could we have a member of the public? Jason Frisbee, could you please take a picture of all of staff so no one gets left out? Jason Frisbee is the CEO, Executive Director of Platte River Power Authority. So thank you for your services. Oh, Kurt? I didn't tell Kurt's here. One good one, however many it takes. Hold on. I gotta see that. I gotta laugh. Yes. All right. As we move on, a couple of things. First of all, we ended abruptly last week, and the rules state that we should go right in and continue the meeting from last time. The reason I didn't do it is just because it's on the agenda again, and we'll have plenty. Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, but we have time to talk about it tonight. It's on here. I didn't steal it off. It's there. So we will have the opportunity to talk about that tonight. But I believe, Councilmember Peck, I did not have an opportunity to call on you. You were in the queue, and I apologize.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I have a question for the city attorney, and then based upon your answer, I'll make a motion. But it has been brought to our attention, and I would like you to clarify, according to our city charter, when we appoint a director to the Platte River Power Authority, can we do that by consensus, or does that have to be a motion?
Mayor and Council, Eugene May, City Attorney. I don't think that is a charter issue. I
Okay.
think that it is more a Robert's Rules of Order
Okay.
and practice of the council. I see many things approved by council by consensus. It is often used. So I think it's at the council's discretion to do that and the chair's discretion.
Okay, so the consensus to appoint the director stands, since we appointed by consensus.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I don't have a motion.
Thanks, Councilmember. Thank you, Councilmember Peck. I'm aware that someone will come up and yell at me shortly, but yes, it is appropriate under Robert's Rules of Order to basically ask for a consensus vote, and if nobody speaks up, it passes. So anyway, let's move on. First call, public invited to be heard. Oh, we have a virtual who's who of citizens tonight. Who will it be first? Ingrid Moore of 925 Little Leaf Court. You're the next citizen on first call public invited to be heard. Cue the music, Dr. Waters.
For once, I think the microphone's low enough. My name is Ingrid Moore, 925 Little Leaf Court, Longmont. Hello, Mayor Bagley and council members. I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the Longmont chapter of the PPAN, which is the Boulder County People and Pollinator Action Network. We are respectfully asking for council support for an exciting opportunity for Longmont to move further along in transitioning to organic land management. As you know, PPAN and Longmont's Natural Resources Division sponsored a Pollinator Safe City resolution in 2017. This recognizes the importance of protecting and supporting pollinators and is guiding important city practices. Under this resolution, the city has been actively implementing those principles in various projects, including the Wildlife Management Plan for the restoration of the St. Vrain River. Now, we have yet another opportunity to further the goals of the resolution by working with a nationally recognized organization in a chemical-free turf trial program. The company, Beyond Pesticides, will provide their services at no cost to the city. The goal is to demonstrate whether it's feasible to convert 3 of the city parks from synthetic chemical maintenance to an organically managed system. My cohort, Don Murray, will speak after me and give you a little more information. A turf trial program may sound a bit mundane, but every action taken to reduce the unnecessary use of poisons and other chemicals in our environment is important. We applaud the City of Longmont's commitment to environmental sustainability. We are requesting that you, council, direct staff tonight, if possible, to engage with Chip Osborne and Beyond Pesticides to evaluate this turf program. And if staff believes this is a viable and sustainable way to manage our parks, they will return to council with an update on the program. We respectfully ask for your consideration of this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. All right, next, Don Murray. If everybody could state their name and address for the record, that would be great.
I don't have to raise it much above Ingrid. My name is Don Murray, 6 Princeton Circle. Good evening, Mayor Bagley and council. I'm here also representing the Boulder County People and Pollinator Action Network.
I'm sorry, could you get up
Yep.
right there so the
All
people
right.
can hear? Thanks.
I'm here to reiterate Ingrid's call for council to direct staff to engage with Osborne Organics and Beyond Pesticides in an organic land management pilot study at no upfront cost to the city. 2 years ago, Longmont, with PPAN's help, took the bold step to pass Pollinator Safe Resolution, which aimed to change land management practices, protect the diminishing pollinator population, especially to eliminate the use of systemic pesticides. This new project builds on the initial step to look at organic ways of managing city-owned land. Pesticide and herbicide use is one of the primary problems causing the decline of pollinators worldwide. While use of these toxic chemicals is regulated in agricultural areas, overuse in urban areas is rampant. These chemicals do not go away and end up in our water supplies, like the St. Vrain River, affecting aquatic life as well. Finding less toxic alternatives to manage our urban lands is imperative. Osborne Organics and Beyond Pesticides are providing this opportunity as a way to get beyond the use of these toxins in urban areas. I've seen Chip Osborne's presentation several times, and he's got a proven track record at managing turf areas, especially with organic methods. He's worked with the city of Boulder for several years now. And Beyond Pesticides will underrate the cost of the training, the soil testing, and planning for this project. So it's our hope, Boulder County PPAN's hope, that the city will proceed with this pilot project, and if successful, we'll be able to share that with the broader city community to make Longmont a safe place for pollinators and people. So I request that you direct staff to go with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Regina Cheney.
Good evening, council folks and Mayor Bagley. My name is Regina Cheney. My husband Ron and I live at 416 Main Street, just about a block away. I was born in Longmont. My father was born in Longmont. My children and my grandchildren were also. I'm committed to our community and I'm invested in Longmont. I've been a residential property manager in Longmont for 36 years. I've testified in court as an expert witness in the area of residential property management. I'm here tonight to speak to you about rent control. This policy is long favored by tenant advocates and politicians who expressly claim that rent control is a way to ensure housing affordability and to prevent gentrification. But in fact, according to a 2018 Stanford University study, rent control is a failed policy. It discourages the production of rental inventory to meet demand. The summary is we see rent control decrease property investment, increase demolition and reconstruction of new buildings, and conversion to owner-occupied housing. Rent control has been fueled gentrification in some areas of San Francisco, the exact opposite of the policy's intended goal. Owners of rent-controlled properties substitute towards other types of real estate that are not regulated by rent control. High rent areas are much more likely to gentrify due to financial incentive for the landlord to remove tenants. The study found that rent control decreased social mobility and created less housing opportunity for newcomers to the market. Rent control resulted in decline of renters by almost 30% living in rent-controlled apartments. This is because the number of buildings which were subject to rent control status were redeveloped in such a way as to no longer be subject to it. It also resulted in demolition of some apartment buildings and the rebuilding of new single-family homes or condos, or merely converting existing structures to condos. Rent control has proven to be bad for cities where it is in place, and it simply does not work. I urge you to look at facts from studies, experts, and other community experiences, and not base your rent control position on good intentions. Take a well-thought-out, defendable stand. Long after good intentions are forgotten, the consequences of this failed policy would remain. My Irish Catholic mother used to say, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." Please do not drag us into economic hell with good intentions. Thank you.
All right, great. Vicky Baca. Vicky, if you live at 704 Windflower Drive, are you here? Okay. Mr. Jeff Thompson, the spotlight is yours, sir.
Jeff Thompson, 1616 Sumner Street. I prepared these written comments for the City Council for this meeting tonight, and also for the Board of Directors of Platte River Power for their directors meeting on Thursday. The council communication for tonight's meeting said that there would be officials here tonight, and I understand they are, and I've given them these comments. So this is a good time to resolve this. Please use this opportunity to clarify that 1, Longmont failed to appoint a director to fill the vacancy which opened last October for the term ending December 31st, 2018. 2, the attached mayor's confirmation certificate confirming the appointment of Susan Wisecup to fill the vacancy which opened last October was false. And 3, Longmont has not appointed a director to serve for the new term, which began January 1st, 2019 and ends December 31st, 2023. Please consider the following to resolve these matters. Under our city charter, the City Council can act only by motion, resolution, or ordinance, and Councilmember Peck, City Attorney May, was being very dishonest. He simply thought he could brush aside the city charter and say this is not a city charter problem. But as I've expressed to you before, I have real problems with Eugene May being our city attorney. Based on what he said, I think that just proves that we have a crooked city attorney and we should get an honest city attorney. A motion, resolution, or ordinance has not been made to appoint a director to fill the term which ended December 31st, 2018, or to appoint a director to fill the new term which began on January 1st, 2019. You can refer to the organic contract to see what I'm talking about with these terms. And Mr. Frisbee can help you on that, since obviously you haven't read it yet, Mayor. You really should, since you've been on the board long enough. And our Open Meetings Act requires that a reasonable notice be given to the public before the council takes any formal action, and there was never notice given. In fact, if you read the transcript of the meeting that's in this packet, you can see that Harold Dominguez never even asked you to appoint a director. He simply said he wanted to send Susan Wisecup to a director's meeting for just one meeting, and he clearly said that he owed you an agenda item.
All right,
So
thank you, Mr. Thompson.
what he said confirms what I said.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
This shows that
Mr.
there's
Thompson?
a real corruption problem in this
Mr.
city.
Thompson? All right, but that is a serious accusation, you know, and so I just want to make sure we poll the council. Mr. Thompson provided us and I'm not responding to the public invited to be heard comment, but if this is actually the case, this is actually serious, right? I don't, there was a member of the public tonight that provided a brief, it's not an official transcript, I'm assuming it's correct, but it might not be, but it's a very brief section of the meeting. I believe I recall, and maybe I'm wrong, but I recall that we actually had a motion and then we decided on consensus vote. And so I'm not asking for the city attorney or the city manager to recollect, but my understanding is we had a motion and a consensus vote and we appointed Sarah Wisecup to the directorship, or sorry, Susan Wisecup to the directorship as a board member of the Platte River Power Authority. If she wasn't appointed, then she's been we've just been wasting our time up there and we're gonna have to redo everything. So is that your recollection that we made a motion and we appointed her? Councilmember Peck? Just a yes, no would be good. I just want to make sure we're all on record as I remember that we had a motion and we appointed her by consensus.
Can we have a staff look at that video and then come back? Why don't we just have staff member research that video of
Because
that meeting?
because the point is this is what I'm trying to do,
What are you
right?
trying to do?
So anyway, we'll talk later, but my point is we appointed her by motion. That's my point. So if somebody wants to bring that up in the future, that's fine. But if someone wants to make a motion and second it. But other than that, this issue's dead. All right, thank you. All right, let's move on. Let's go on to the consent agenda. Council member, City Clerk Quintana, can you please read the consent agenda for us?
You bet. Item 8A is Resolution 2019-41, a resolution of the Longmont City Council establishing fees for criminal justice records. 8B is Resolution 2019-42, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the Home Consortium intergovernmental agreement between the city, the counties of Boulder and Broomfield, and the City of Boulder as lead agency for the Home Consortium. 8C is Resolution 2019-43, a resolution of the Longmont City Council authorizing loans from fund balance in the city's fleet fund to the DDA Construction Fund and the DDA Arts and Entertainment Fund, providing for repayment of the loans from the DDA Tax Increment Income Fund. 8D is Resolution 2019-44, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Colorado Department of Transportation for grant funding for click-it-or-ticket seatbelt enforcement. 8E is Resolution 2019-45, a resolution of the Longmont City Council authorizing a loan from fund balance in the city's fleet fund to the Storm Drainage Fund and providing for repayment of the loan from the Storm Drainage Fund. 8F has two resolutions with it for Platte River Power Authority Organic Contract and Power Supply Agreement. Resolution 2019-46, A resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the town of Estes Park, city of Fort Collins, and city of Loveland for an amended and restated organic contract establishing Platte River Power Authority as a separate governmental entity. Resolution 2019-47, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Platte River Power Authority for an amended contract for the supply of electric power and energy.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Councilmember Finley.
I move the consent agenda.
All right, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously with Marcia Martin absent. Or not unanimously, but unanimously from the people that are here, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, let's go on to ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. 9A, ordinance 2019-26, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as the Keltner property to Megan Gregory and Susan Summers. Are there any questions is there a staff report? No, correct? All right, any questions or comments from council? All right, this time I don't see anybody on the public hearing list, and we will excuse our Platte River Power Authority executive team. Thank you for coming down, guys. And anyway, so we'll open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-26. All right, we will now close the public hearing, seeing that no one would like to speak. Can we have a motion, please? Councilmember Finley.
I move passage of ordinance 2019-26.
All right. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Seeing that nobody else is in the queue, let's vote. All right, that passes. Dr. Waters, can you push that button again? All right, that passes unanimously with Marcia Martin absent. All right, 9B, ordinance 2019-27, a bill for an ordinance amending sections 4.04.020 and 4.04090 of the Longmont Municipal Code on sales and use tax exemption for pre-owned homes. That we've already had a staff presentation on this, but I'm assuming there's not another one. Okay, seeing none, are there any questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on the matter. Nobody signed up, but is there any member here that would like to present or testify regarding ordinance 2019-27? All right, seeing no one, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Can I have a Mayor Pro Tem? Yeah, move it. Move that motion.
I would move passage of ordinance 2019-27.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Seeing nobody else in the queue, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously with Marcia Martin absent. All right, 9C, ordinance 2019-28, a bill for an ordinance amending section 2.04 of the Longmont Municipal Code on the Longmont Fair Campaign Practices Act. Are there any questions or comments from council? All right, let's go ahead and open the public hearing, which I have not seen anybody sign up for. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, are you still in the queue? Do you want to say something? Yes. Okay, on this? Yes. Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem.
I would also like to reiterate that I think it is a mistake to eliminate the electioneering communication reporting requirements entirely, but since I am on the minority for that, I would go ahead with that. I do think it would be helpful for us on number 5 to add, as well as good cause, for the judge to be able to consider inexcusable neglect. Because if somebody has just run rampant over everything, I think we should be able to, the judge should have the discretion to raise the penalty to above $999.
Can you show me where that, just out of curiosity?
I don't know if that would be the term.
No, that's all right. So can you point to where we're
We're
at?
going to have excusable neglect.
Got it. Mr., do you remember where it is in the ordinance?
No.
So it's in there, council voted to include language allowing the judge to consider good cause or excusable neglect. So 2.04.221. So we got 211. It's here. Well, it should be right here. So it's section B, hearing. So it says, so yeah, so if the court affirms the violation, the court may increase or reduce the amount of fine imposed by the city clerk upon a finding of good cause or excusable neglect based on evidence presented during the hearing. So we did
Right.
that.
Yes. My point is, though, that the judge should also have the discretion to raise the fine if there's clear evidence of blatant disregard
I'll
for
raise
the
it.
rules. So I would move that we consider doing that.
All right, okay, there wasn't a second, but it was a good idea, good idea. All right, so are there any other questions or comments from council? All right, I guess the only question I have is, so if a candidate had a report due today and had they not filed it and taken like 2 hours to figure out how to do it and stress about it, did I have to do that today? Say yes. Okay, good. All right, so let's open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-28. Anybody want to say anything? No? All right, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm going to ask for a motion, if you don't mind. Someone want to say it? All right, I'll move ordinance 2019-28. All right, we moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and vote. All right, that passes unanimously with Marcia Martin absent. And that will become law in 10 days. All right, Master Board of Appeals term limit changes. I do not have a copy of the document. Somebody tell me what number that is? What page number in the packet it is?
207 is the red line change to the
Right.
Rule 27 in the boards. I can read it to you.
Yeah,
It's
go
very
ahead. Could you just read it for us? Because I've only got the agenda up.
So the new language is, except for the Master Board of Appeals, board or commission members appointed by city council shall serve no more than 2 consecutive terms in office, thereby exempting the Master Board of Appeals from that term limit.
Perfect. Anybody else want to make a motion? Councilmember Finley.
I move that we make that change.
I'll second it. Let's vote. All right. Oh, I assume it passed unanimously, but okay, yep, it passed unanimously with Marcia Martin absent. All right, nothing was removed from the consent agenda. So we are going to get rid of 11A and 11B because, as previously mentioned, those have been pulled due to the aforementioned reasons. And now we come to the fun part of the evening. We got 12 minutes till 8. There's no chance that we're going to hit 11 o'clock on this issue. We can try, but man. All right, so, man. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to 2019 legislative bills recommended for city council position. So why don't we go ahead and just take them one at a time real quick, because we know there's going to be some discussion and debate on Senate Bill 19-225. So let's start with House Bill 19-1314, just transition from coal-based electrical energy economy.
Mayor Bagley, would you like a presentation on it? Okay, very good. Sandy Cedar, Assistant City Manager, Mayor Bagley, members of council. What House Bill 1314 does is it gives some grant funding and creates a plan from the state to assist when coal manufacturing is beginning to slow down because of the transition to electric and renewable energy sources. So what this does is this allows for those areas that have coal burning manufacturing folks to be able to have some relief, as well as those municipalities who will realize that. It's not a huge, it's not necessarily a huge impact on Longmont per se, because we don't have a whole lot of people that are working in the coal industry, but certainly we are part owners and PRPA, and as they look at their own coal burning plant, this kind of legislation will assist that transition. So because of that, staff recommends that council supports 1314.
Nobody's in the queue, but I serve on the Platte River Power Authority Board, and we've got a whole bunch of people up there, working in the coal plant, and sometime in the foreseeable future, 2047, if we just ignore our goal, but much sooner if we actually continue to move forward on this. So I would actually move that we support House Bill 19-1314, so people like our employees up there can get training in the new technology that's coming. All right, Councilmember Peck, do you want to say anything? Okay. Let it be known that Councilmember Peck seconded that motion. All right, let's go ahead and vote. All right, that passes unanimously with Councilmember Marsha Martin absent. Let's do Senate Bill 19-242, Emergency Medical Services Providers Licensing.
Thank you, Mayor.
Cedar?
What Senate Bill 242 does is it requires a college degree, basically, for EMS ambulance folks. For us, that's not necessarily making sense because there's lots of certifications that are already required for EMS. So it would create a very odd job market and would potentially put a burden of cost on our firefighters who are also EMTs, as well as just the general market for this type of job. So because of that, and the fire chiefs also oppose Senate Bill 242, we would suggest the same for the council.
All right, nobody's in the queue, but speaking on, well, for council, I think I love firefighters and paramedics, so I move that we oppose Senate Bill 19-242. Councilmember Peck, I'm gonna let you make the next motion on the next one, because I see in the queue twice just as I was starting to speak, so. All right, Mayor Pro Tem? Okay, sorry, let's vote then on that. This is to oppose Senate Bill 19-242. All right, that passes unanimously with Councilmember Marsha Martin absent. All right, for tonight's main event, Senate Bill 19-225, which authorizes local governments it says to stabilize rent, but it's to implement rent control. So, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, I will continue what I was saying last week before I was so rudely cut off.
I didn't cut you off. You were done. You
No,
were
I was not done.
You turned off your microphone.
No, we
I'm pretty sure
had
it
to
was.
end because it was 11 o'clock. Anyway, I think we can see by the person who testified earlier what we're going to see with this. I attended the hearings on the mobile home stuff last week, and we also discussed this down in the State House. And so this is obviously, it is not to implement rent control. It is for local control over what kind of solutions we need to solve, from Maybell to Lamar to Sterling to Cortez to Denver. We all have very different situations. This allows local governments to have some kind of control over what we're doing. The whole time, the whole year or the last 4 or 5 years that I've been trying to get us to have affordable housing, we have been threatened with lawsuits because of this and because of the Telluride decision. This would simply get rid of that ability to threaten people who want to set up affordable housing ordinances in their city. I also attended the Landlord Alliance meeting last week, sponsored by the city. The person speaking there was a member of the Colorado Apartment Association and the Boulder County apartment something or other. And the way she spoke about renters and the way some of the people at that meeting spoke about renters, it was appalling. She said, well, they're gonna line up all their sob stories, and I was just appalled. So she said, we need to educate them, you know, like we did on the gas and oil bill. So we're gonna see tons of people and tons of money thrown to try to destroy this, which was set up a long time ago. And it's a state preemption on any kind of local control over any kind of affordable housing. It needs to go away so that we have the right to do whatever we find to be a useful local solution. My experience has been that rent control is never very useful because there are always ways to wiggle out of it. And so it's not a very useful thing. But what is useful is what we've done, is try to have thoughtful ways to work with builders and establish different ways to be able to afford, to create affordable housing in our neighborhoods and our towns. So I would strongly support this. I mean, hope we would strongly support this because it fits in very well with what our priorities and goals were for creating affordable housing and a good mix of workforce housing. And so I would support, I would move that we support this.
All right. Council, I mean, I could have ended it right now if I was a total jerk, but I'm not. So it's been seconded, right? So the Councilmember Finley. I play
I'm
nice.
so glad you're not a total jerk.
Just kind of a jerk.
Senate Bill 19225 says right here, it's the bill repeals existing statutory language prohibiting counties or municipalities from enacting any ordinance or resolution that would control rent, that would be rent control, on either private residential property or private residential housing units collectively. The bill authorizes governments to enact and enforce any ordinance, resolution, agreement, deed restriction, or any other measure that would stabilize rent on private residential property. That is exactly what will cause gentrification of our older properties. We wouldn't necessarily do that, but given the opportunity, cities do that, and it's counterproductive. In order to keep properties, rental properties affordable, a better solution would be to give those owners some kind of property tax rebate to keep them affordable, rather than saying you have to keep the rent at this level. This makes no sense whatsoever, and I will not be supporting it.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Even if this passes, we do not have to use it. It is another tool, as Tim Waters is always, Councilman Waters is always telling me, another tool in our toolbox. But it does say communities would be better able to keep their workforce housed in their community if there were more affordable homes available within each rental development. And that's exactly what we're doing with our inclusionary zoning, inclusionary housing ordinance. It doesn't say that we have to do this. It just says that you may be able to have rent control if you want. I don't think anybody on this council is even thinking about having rent control. It is just, no, I'm not. So, because it's getting more, no, I'm not, Mayor, Councilwoman Finley. Because it's getting more and more difficult to site and build affordable housing. This is exactly what our inclusionary zoning does. It allows us to put affordable housing in developments. I will support it mainly because there are other counties and cities, rural, like Aspen, and that need to do this in order to keep their workforce, because they're outpacing what their workforce can afford, so they can't live where they need to be working. I don't think that, I'll support it as a tool.
Dr. Waters.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. It seems to me that the general principle underlying this and a number of other pieces of legislation that we've considered is the principle of local control, right? And in the interest of consistency, personally, I'm gonna vote to support this. But here's why: because it creates a tool, like other tools we've created for ourselves. If I think about legislation, we voted to support, and I have to say, I think we ought to call ourselves a little bit on consistency or the lack of it, because we supported oil and gas, Senate Bill, Senate Bill 1281, or is it House Bill 1281? 1281.
Senate Bill 181.
Senate Bill 1281. We supported it because it vested us or municipalities in the kind of the authoritative role, local control. Some of us supported the minimum wage bill for the same reason. I don't know if we all did. I did. I think a majority of us supported House Bill 1052, which was, or is, the legislation, the option to create special early childhood special education districts as a matter of local control. This becomes an option for locals to decide, right? I mean, all of those, the underlying principle, as was my vote to repeal an ordinance that allowed for metro districts to be proposed. We haven't approved any of these things. But to be consistent, from metro districts to potential rent control, I'm going to vote yes on this because of the principle of local control and all the tools that we need at our disposal to make the kinds of decisions that serve the best interest of our community. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Just somewhat in reference to what Councilmember Waters was saying about consistency in votes, I did get hammered by some folks on the minimum wage vote, and I wanted to make sure that at least express myself hopefully clearly this time in that I am not actually in favor of rent control. I don't really see the efficacy of rent control and how it's been applied in certain situations. But at the same time, I've continued to say up here that I believe in unwinding state preemption and believe wholeheartedly in allowing local municipalities to make their choices for themselves, regardless of whether it's where they site oil and gas operations, whether they choose to increase minimum wage, or whether they choose to institute rent control. And so I will be voting in support of this, but I am in no way advocating for rent control in the city of Longmont, because I don't think it's appropriate and I don't think it would be an effective tool. So that's where I stand.
All right, Councilmember Finley, you can go before I speak.
Thank you. I understand your want to be consistent with local control, but if there was a bill that said all cities have local control of killing puppies, would you be in favor of that? A bad law is a bad law. It doesn't matter whether it's local control or state control. If it's a bad piece of legislation, it's a bad piece of legislation.
I mean, it's early in the evening, right? So we're going to break protocol. Dr. Waters, do you have a response? Yes or no? Do you like killing puppies? Let the record reflect that Dr. Waters is silent on the issue of killing puppies. I don't know if he's running again, but that's news. Times call, Longmont Observer. Dr. Waters might enjoy killing puppies. You want to clarify the record or not, Doc?
Yeah, I just want to say there are some things. Actually, I find myself agreeing with Councilmember Finley more and more often, and I would agree with her that any suggestion that we would do harm to animals would just be off the charts wrong.
Thank you.
But the concept nevertheless applies for me. That particular piece has not come before us, but all the others have, right? The others I mentioned have all come before us, and I'll reiterate what Councilmember Rodriguez said. I have no interest in creating rent control. I like what we do with the voluntary approach we've taken. And I honestly, I don't have anything in my mind to propose regarding minimum wage. I do believe that the living wage issue that we've heard about several times from the League of Women Voters is important to us, and that when we get into budget discussions, I'm certain that's on my list, that as we think about 2020, we write in the kind of fair employment language into our contracts. But every time we can give ourselves another tool, whether to use it, how to use it, is up to us. We have to be smart and calculating and strategic. I can think of lots of proposals that might come to us under any one of these headings that I would vote no on, because it's our option. But I wouldn't want to take the tools out of our tool bag, and I love puppies.
That headline tomorrow should read, Dr. Tim Waters loves puppies. Got that, Mr. Fryer? All right. Mayor Pro Tem Christensen.
I think we've found something we agree on. We don't like puppy murder. I agree with Councilwoman Finley that bad legislation is bad legislation. This was bad legislation crammed down our throats by ALEC, the American Legislative Executive Council, by the real estate industry, by the builders industry, by all the very powerful money interests that want to have absolute control over all of our housing, and they have, and that is why it is so completely unaffordable. It's good to have some consistency, but you know, this isn't just about consistency for me about local control, because remember, if we still had local control on everything, women wouldn't have the vote and we'd still have slavery. So there are certain levels of authority that our lawmaking is appropriate to, that have to be done on a national basis. Some have to be done on a statewide basis, some have to be done on a county, and some have to be local. Because we have many, many different kinds of situations in Colorado, many different kinds of economies. This is something, housing is a basic need. It's not something that ought to be, at the end of the day, really that totally controlled by market forces. People have to have a place to live. So local governments have to be able to be flexible enough to figure out the situation of how to provide that basic need for, if it's not happening in the market, then we have to be flexible enough to figure out a way that we can negotiate things and create situations where we can have affordable housing. This eliminates the state preemption on any kind of ability for local governments to have any affordable housing. As I said, we were repeatedly threatened with being sued for the whole time we have been deciding the affordable housing, which had nothing to do with rent control. And as I think we've all said, nobody here thinks that rent control is a particularly good idea. So it really isn't about rent control. It's about stabilizing rent. It's exactly what it says.
All right, before I say anything, nobody else is in the queue. So Waters, Christensen, and Bonnie have all spoken 2 times. I'm trying to manipulate everyone into speaking twice before I say what I have to say, so we can just move on and finish the meeting. Councilmember Peck, you want to say anything? Councilmember Rodriguez? He's like, no, what do you got to say, Bagley? Anyway, my only comment is, first of all, I do not like talking about these state issues. I don't like talking about federal issues. I don't like talking about state issues, because at the end of the day, we don't serve in the state legislature. This vote means absolutely nothing other than eat up some time. We each are individually capable of picking up and calling our state reps to encourage them to vote how we want them to, or encourage them to. And on a really important one, you know, I might understand, well, let's talk about it. But going through, I view this exercise as pretending like we're state legislatures. I don't want to serve in the state legislature. And this just drives me nuts whenever we do this, because it doesn't matter. That said, this just basically overturns the Telluride decision, which basically says cities can't set rent control. And I understand, I appreciate and hear what everybody's saying, and but I think that where I draw the line on local control is when there is something that will impact me, meaning an individual in the city of Longmont. Oil and gas, local control was important, because if someone is insisting, you know, if somebody in Telluride is insisting that they put a gas well next to my home, that impacts me. Therefore, localities and local control should have something to say about it. And so in this particular case, it's not an issue of local control, because if municipalities statewide start approving rent control or rent stabilization, or whatever you want to call it, what's going to happen is that, I mean, I want people to be able to afford their homes. And while this appears to be something that will help, imagine for a second that you own a mobile home park. And then all of a sudden the city says, your rents are $700 a month, they're frozen. Now, I know they might not freeze, they might increase 2% a year, 3% or whatever, but all of a sudden they're frozen. First year, your residents are happy. Second year, your residents are happy. Third year, all of a sudden, wait a second. You know, the discounted cash flow rate, the value, the cap rate of my mobile home is now, you know, this little park here is not generating the revenue that the rent, I mean, there's a better use for this property. So what we're going to do is I'm going to evict everybody at the end of their lease, and I'm going to turn it into privately owned condos or a grocery store or something else that is not rent-based. And what you're going to have is those people are going to lose their homes. And now when they leave their home, they're going to be subjected to higher rents and an unavailability of housing in Longmont. I mean, if we did that. I mean, so that's the reason I'm going to vote against this, because it's not local control. It's just if we do this as a state, Colorado housing will continue to increase. It's the same argument I made back when we were talking about affordable housing originally, until I realized that, you know, we could like twist it and do all kinds of things to make it, you know, more palatable. The bill as written, is just giving local control to municipalities that will allow them to stabilize rent by fixing the price of rent over years, which will ultimately lead to a decrease in housing. So again, but it doesn't matter. So I'm out of order for saying that because it really doesn't matter. So anyway, let's vote. So a negative vote is that. All right, so that passes 4-2. And that is Councilmember Rodriguez, Councilmember Peck, Mayor Pro Tem Christensen, and Councilmember Waters all voted for. And Councilmember Finley and Bagley voted against. So put that in an envelope and mail that off to the state, and we can sleep well tonight. Because we all voted our conscience and said a little something on TV. Okay, good. All right, let's go ahead now and go on to final call, public invited to be heard. See some ladies that snuck in the back. You want to come down and yell at us? We're used to it tonight. The night is young. Nothing? All right, let's move on to mayor and council comments. Mayor Pro Tem Christensen.
Well, the mayor is very tired tonight, so I'm going to just tell a sweet little story about why I like Longmont, because I didn't get to last time.
Yay.
So bear with me a little bit. So I was barreling down Judson Street the other day, and I was late because I'm always supposed to be about 4 places at the same time. And I saw a whole bunch of mail all over the street, and I thought, oh, I can't deal with this. But, you know, it's my neighborhood. So I pulled over, I started gathering up on the mail, and there are all these checks in the mail. And then I started looking at the address, and I realized, oh, it's Mr. Vigil, who lives right over there. And I thought, what happened here? Did Mr. Vigil get seized by a hawk and his mail got thrown out or something? I don't know. Anyway, so I gathered up all the mail, and I'm talking, I go over and I'm thinking about ringing on the door, but I remember Mr. Vigil's about 86, and he doesn't really like to come to the door, and it's illegal to stick the mail in through the slot because I'm not the mailman. So while I'm standing there, the new guy, one of the really nice young people who've moved into the neighborhood, and I mean by this somebody who's, say, 40, that's a young guy to me. He's fixing his house. He's been doing a great job, he and his wife, and now he's got his dad roped into it. So we're sitting there talking about the Vigils and everything, and I said, would you give this to the Vigils when they come back? And then Mr. Vigil shows up and he said, oh, that's where it is. Oh, I guess I left it on my roof. Anyway, so that's what we like about Longmont. We can all talk to each other, and we can all joke about how forgetful we are, and that's what I like about Longmont. We all are pretty low-key with each other.
All right, nobody else is in the queue, but I've got a couple of things. I had the opportunity to go up and visit our friends in Wind River this weekend. And I just wanted to I'm going to be talking with Harold, and we've mentioned this in the past, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. And so we talked about designating some city property where they could build a sweat lodge and use that to be able to worship on their homelands and utilize. It's a diameter of 20 feet, you know, so that and a small place for a fire pit is all they require. And so I asked Harold to bring back and put it on the agenda, a location on city-owned property, preferably water fund, so that it's more palatable to people, et cetera. So that will be coming back. The other thing is sister cities. In June, we're having our first exchange, and there will be 8 children from the Northern Arapaho tribe with 2 adult chaperones coming down, and they'll be doing everything from, well, they'll come down and they'll be going over to the Innovation Center and learning how to operate video equipment and sound equipment to be able to videotape the week that they'll be here in order to give a presentation to their business council and their tribal elders when they go back. These 8 kids are children from the reservation that have never been off the reservation. And so it's really, I mean, that they're A, coming down is great for them, and B, it's also phenomenal and a big show of trust for this city that they're sending their children like that down here. And so they're going to be staying with Carmen and Ray Ramirez. And we've reached out to an artist, forget the gentleman's name right now. I wish Ray were here or Carmen were here. But he basically builds skate parks on reservations, and he's an artist. And so we've gotten skateboards donated, and he's going to be teaching them how to do art with their skateboards, and they're all going to go back with skateboards, and they're going to be learning about, you know, just all kinds of cool stuff while they're down here. So that's coming up in June. And so Sister Cities has money, and I told them to put together a budget and then tell us how much they can afford, what the total cost is going to be, and then I'm going to ask City Council to take some money out of our contingency fund. I've spoken with everybody. They've said, yeah, sure, but there's not a price tag yet. It's not real expensive, and but that will be coming back shortly, if that makes sense. So those 2 things. And then last but not least, I sit on the Thorn Nature Experience Board, which is an advocacy, or it's a group that has a facility out in Boulder, and their mission is to basically teach children and youth the importance of connecting with nature. And so there is a meeting of local officials on May 20th at noon. It's a luncheon at the City Club in the old Highlands building in Boulder, where I used to work when I was working with Jim Collins back in grad school. And they asked if if I could please attend, and wanted to know if anyone else from the city, management or council, would like to attend. And so if anybody wants to go with me, I'll pay your lunch, and we can go hang out and talk. May 20th at noon. And so anybody who wants to go, I'll take the SUV. I'll make my kids clean it. I think it's May 20th at noon, a Monday. So, oh really? So anyway, just let me know afterwards. All right, if you want to go. Okay, Councilmember Peck's in. Rodriguez is in. So we all right, well, that's 3, so we'll have to post it. We'll post it, and then we can invite the press if they want to come along in the car. We'll drive with the windows down and the doors unlocked to make sure it's an open meeting, or drive separately, but come on down. Yeah, Harold?
Can you just send us a specific so we can make sure that gets on council calendar?
Yep, I'll do that. All right, great. So Councilmember Waters is in the queue.
Real quickly, Harold, you and I had spoken about this, but I'm mindful of the Saturday Mayor's Summit on My Childhood. Seems like once we check that off, it would be a really good time to have a quarterly review of progress on all of our goals and objectives and the work we've organized around those. We had agreed that we would do quarterly updates, and it's been a while since we've done that, but having that behind us would be a good time. Could we get something on a May council agenda sometime?
We can. If I can just have May generally, I think that works. We've got some pretty heavy items coming on the front end, so May would work.
All right,
and that corresponds with the other work on B3, B4 as well.
All right. And just by way of reminder, somebody mentioned, anyway, we can talk about that later. Not a big deal. All right. So, City Manager, any remarks?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
All right. Mr. May?
No comments, Mayor.
I just want to point out, look how early that was. And Marcia ain't here. No, just kidding. We love you, Marcia. Hurry back wherever you are.